Brian, I think what you're watching is really what happens to the Senate at this point. You think that the market is pricing in a potential Biden win, but not a Democratic sweep. Why don't you explain that?
Yeah, I am, but I'm also paying attention to what Mario Gabelli just said. I think those key appointments are very important. But on the Senate side, I get the sense that investors are skeptical that Biden could get, if he wins, could get his agenda through a closely split Senate. And I'm thinking 51-49. I think 52 is kind of a magic number. It's a tipping point that if Senate Democrats have a good night, they get to 52 seats, all of a sudden it gives the majority leader a little bit more room to start changing the filibuster, easing the rules to get legislation through. Most of your viewers probably know that you need 60 votes currently to get legislation through the Senate. And there'd be a move by Senate Democrats to change those rules. And that makes a tax hike easier. It makes a Green New Deal easier. It makes the progressive agenda easier to get through. So 52 to me is a pretty big number as I'm looking at election night.
And that means what in terms of the markets?
I think if you get to 52 or higher, I think there could be a bit of a reversal of this reflation trade that we've seen. I think part of the reflation trade has been thinking that we're going to get more relief, more stimulus, but discounting the prospects of a tax hike. If Democrats get to 52 or higher, all of a sudden the tax hike becomes more realistic, and I think investors start to price that in a little bit more than they have to this point.
What about what happens? I know there's 4 scenarios, and you've kind of gamed each of them out. One would be the Democratic sweep that you just kind of laid out. Another would be Biden wins the presidency, but the GOP maintains control of the Senate. What happens to the market in that situation?
I think the market kind of likes that scenario. It would be disappointed with the prospect of lower stimulus, lower relief, lower fiscal support. I get that. I still think there is in that scenario, there would be more relief coming. It would just be at a slightly lower level. The tax hike is off the table. Some of the progressive agenda items are off the table. Now, there'd be more attention on the regulatory side. And this goes to Mario Gabelli's comments. So I do think there will be some landing places in a Biden administration for progressive regulators. At the same time, if it's a GOP Senate, that makes it a little bit more difficult for Biden to get through some of his more controversial picks, to the extent he would pick an Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders ally to key positions. It might run into a roadblock. And so the regulatory risk for certain sectors would be reduced.
What happens if the president wins the presidency, gets reelected, and the Senate is maintained controlled by the GOP?
So under that scenario, I think there's a bit of a relief rally because tax cut is off the table. The regulatory environment, which I think has been very pro-business and markets have liked that, that stays in place. Stimulus probably, again, at a lower level. The problem for investors after that is there's a follow-up question. What's next? What is a Trump 2.0 agenda? And I think the campaign has not put out a detailed agenda. So I think investors are left figuring out, what's going to happen over the next couple of years, next 4 years. And I do think under that scenario, trade tensions probably elevate. They don't cool as they would probably with a Biden presidency. I think they elevate. And as we saw in 2018, 2019, with the negotiations with China, those are market moving events, and they weren't propping up the market. We had some really big sell-offs engaged in China, and I think that comes into play.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.